I'm so proud of it. When you go to a classical concert, you look at the program, who's coming, who's symphony. In my case, they don't know, and I don't tell them.
With his charm,
André Rieu is not simply a musician, he is an experience. For decades, this Dutch violinist and conductor has transformed the way millions of people around the world think about classical music. Where others saw formality and silence, he saw laughter, tears, and human connection. Where others built careers within existing orchestras and institutions, he built an entire empire from the ground up. But behind the glittering stages and roaring applause lies a much deeper and more personal story, one shaped by early dreams, serious health challenges, family bonds, and a legacy that goes far beyond money or fame. André Rieu's journey is proof that when a person pursues something with genuine passion and refuses to give up even when the world doubts them, they can create something truly extraordinary. His story begins in the peaceful Dutch city of Maastricht, where a young boy grew up surrounded by music, and it continues today as he remains one of the most beloved performers on the planet, though not without facing some very real and very human struggles along the way. Growing up in Maastricht, André was immersed in music from his earliest years. His father served as the conductor of the local symphony orchestra, which meant the Rieu household was never quiet. Sheet music, melodies, rehearsals, and conversations about classical composition were as natural as meals and bedtime routines. While other boys his age dreamed of sports or adventure, young André dreamed of something quieter but equally powerful. He wanted to bring joy to people through music. He was not chasing fame or wealth. He simply wanted to make people smile, laugh, and feel something deep in their hearts. That dream, though simple in its intention, would eventually grow into something the world had never quite seen before. He went on to study at the Royal Conservatory of Brussels, graduating with top honors, and everyone around him expected him to follow the traditional path. Joining established orchestras, performing in formal concert halls, and living by the strict conventions of classical music. But André had a different vision entirely. In 1987, André Rieu made a decision that many around him thought was risky, even foolish. With just 12 musicians beside him, he founded the Johann Strauss Orchestra. Critics were skeptical. Some believed the whole idea was too unconventional to survive. Classical music had its rules, its structure, its serious and dignified atmosphere, and André seemed intent on breaking all of it. His concerts were not solemn evenings of careful listening. They were celebrations. Audiences found themselves clapping along, laughing out loud, singing without planning to, and in many cases, wiping away tears of joy they had not expected to shed. People who had never attended a classical concert before began showing up to his shows because something about them felt different, alive, warm, and deeply human. Then came the moment that changed everything. In 1995, André purchased 60 seconds of television airtime during halftime at a football match and performed a single piece of music. That brief moment reached millions of people and sent his album sales soaring into the hundreds of thousands almost overnight. From that point forward, the Waltz King had arrived on the world stage, and he was not going anywhere. What followed was not just musical success, but the construction of a full and independent empire. Unlike most classical performers who relied on institutions and sponsors, André built everything himself. He established recording studios, production companies, costume workshops, and touring operations. At the peak of this expansion, more than 100 full-time employees worked within his organization, with many more supporting them across different countries. But what made his organization genuinely remarkable was not its scale, it was its culture. Professional chefs prepared meals for the touring team. Fitness trainers traveled with the orchestra to help musicians stay physically strong during demanding schedules. Luxury coaches transported performers between cities. Parents traveling with the orchestra could access childcare support so they could focus on performing without worry. André always described this organization not as a business, but as a family. Critics sometimes accused him of making classical music too soft, too commercial, or too entertainment-focused. He never bothered arguing with them. He simply continued doing what he believed in, and the audiences rewarded him with with their loyalty, their tears, and their standing ovations year after year. While many traditional orchestras struggled to survive, his concerts filled massive arenas and generated hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. Of course, such extraordinary ambition did not come without serious risk. At one point, André invested in a spectacular stage design built to resemble a grand castle, an investment so enormous that it nearly pushed him into financial ruin. For a time, everything he had worked so hard to build seemed on the edge of collapse. Bankruptcy loomed as a very real possibility, but André refused to let it end that way. Through determination, careful management, and the deep belief that his vision was worth fighting for, he slowly rebuilt his financial stability and came through the crisis stronger than before. Success, he had learned, was not a destination but a continuous journey that required resilience and the courage to get back up after falling. Success also gave him the opportunity to fulfill childhood dreams in deeply personal ways. In 1999, he received an unexpected phone call informing him that part of a beautiful 16th-century castle in Maastricht had become available for purchase. For most people, buying a castle would involve months of deliberation. For André, the decision required almost no thought at all. As a young boy, he had taken piano lessons inside those very walls. That castle had witnessed his earliest steps into music. He had also grown up reading Tintin comic books, in which castles appeared as places of wonder and adventure, planting a quiet dream inside his imagination that he had never quite forgotten. Buying the castle in September 1999 felt like more than a purchase. It felt like a reunion with his past, a fulfillment of something that had been quietly waiting for him all along. He carefully restored it and transformed it into a symbol of everything music and dedication had made possible. Among his most treasured possessions are his Stradivarius violins, instruments created centuries ago by the legendary craftsman Antonio Stradivari and worth millions to collectors worldwide. But André does not think of them as investments or trophies. He considers them companions, trusted partners that have shared countless performances, journeys, and unforgettable moments with him. He travels with them carefully, insures them for enormous sums, and guards them with great care. Yet even with all that attachment, he made a remarkable statement during the uncertainty of the pandemic years, when concerts were cancelled and the future of live performance was deeply unclear. He said that if it ever became necessary, he would sell his beloved Stradivarius violin to ensure his musicians were supported. That single statement said everything about his values. Instruments, no matter how priceless, would always matter less to him than the people who made music with him. His personal life reflects the same warmth and depth that defines his professional one. In 1975, André married Marjorie Kochman, a woman who has spent her career as a language teacher and who has also written her own compositions. Their partnership has been built on shared values of learning, culture, creativity, and family. Together they have two sons, one of whom, Pierre, works closely with the Johann Strauss Orchestra in media and production, ensuring that the family's connection to music continues into the next generation. The family lives in their historic castle in Maastricht, a building that, according to André himself, was once connected to the real-life figure who inspired the fictional character D'Artagnan from the Three Musketeers. Whether fully verified or partly legend, the connection gives the home an almost storybook quality that feels entirely appropriate for a man whose life has always seemed touched by something magical. André also speaks 5 languages fluently: Dutch, English, German, French, and Spanish, a skill that has allowed him to connect with audiences across continents and move comfortably through different cultures without barriers. Yet for all the castles, violins, and financial success, André Rieu has not been immune to the physical demands that come with decades of intense touring. Several years ago, he was forced to cancel concerts on 2 separate occasions due to illness. For a performer whose life revolves around live appearances and tight international schedules, those cancellations were not just disappointing, they were frightening. They forced André to confront something he had perhaps avoided thinking about too directly. His body had limits, and ignoring them was no longer an option. He admitted that for much of his career, he had relied on natural energy and youthful stamina. pushing forward without paying serious attention to long-term health habits. These wake-up calls changed him. He began working with a personal trainer, developed a more structured exercise routine, improved his diet, and started treating rest and recovery as non-negotiable parts of his life. Sleep, preparation, and emotional balance became foundations rather than luxuries. The changes were not quick fixes, but genuine lifestyle shifts aimed at building the kind of endurance that a career like his demands. Looking back, André has described this period as one of the most defining of his life, not because it slowed him down, but because it made him stronger, wiser, and far more intentional about how he cared for himself. The most recent health challenge came in March 2024, when André and his Johann Strauss Orchestra were forced to cancel 4 highly anticipated concerts in Mexico. Fans had made travel plans, bought tickets months in advance, and waited with great excitement for these shows. The cancellation came as a painful shock. His son Pierre explained what had happened in detail. The journey from Europe to Mexico City involves roughly 14 hours of flying, a 7-hour time zone shift, and the challenge of adjusting to an altitude of over 2,200 meters above sea level, conditions that can strain even a perfectly healthy traveler. André arrived with only a single day to rest before he was supposed to perform. During that brief window, he was struck by a severe flu that drained his energy completely. The combination of the long flight, the extreme time difference, the high altitude, and the sudden illness left him in no condition to take the stage. Pierre stated simply that his father had no choice but to return home. The disappointment was felt not just by fans, but also by the musicians, technical crew, and organizers who had spent months carefully preparing every detail of those concerts. André recovered within about a week and soon returned to performing, with upcoming shows scheduled in cities across the United Kingdom, including Liverpool, Sheffield, and Glasgow. But the Mexico incident sparked important conversations within his team about how future tours should be planned. More time would be built into the schedule for rest and adjustment before performances. Some destinations, such as Australia, which requires nearly 24 hours of flying time, are now being reconsidered as potentially too demanding. Pierre was honest in acknowledging that such journeys are exhausting, even for young people, and for someone in his mid-70s who must still perform at the highest emotional and physical level on stage. The equation has changed. Future long-distance tours will be approached with far more caution and care. What makes André Rieu's story so powerful is not just what he has accomplished, but what it means to the people who have experienced it. His real wealth, as those closest to him understand, is not measured in euros or assets. It lives in the thousands of musicians whose lives were shaped by performing with him. It lives in the millions of audience members who came to his concerts carrying invisible burdens and left feeling lighter, more hopeful, and more connected to something greater than themselves. It lives in the evenings he created around the world where strangers sat beside each other and, through the shared experience of music, stopped feeling like strangers at all. André Rieu did not only build a successful career, he built memories. He built joy in places where it was needed. He built a bridge between the serious art of classical music and the everyday human heart. And through every health challenge, every financial crisis, every cancelled concert and long recovery, he has kept walking forward. More careful now, more aware of his limits, but no less passionate about the music and the people he has devoted his life to serving. The Waltz King may have grown older and wiser, but the dream that started in a small house in Maastricht, surrounded by melodies and sheet music, and a father conducting the local orchestra, has never faded. If anything, it has only grown more beautiful with time.